They started with nothing. Not a trust fund, not a secret family empire, not some hidden billionaire uncle waiting to hand over a portfolio of properties and companies. They started exactly where you are now. Ground zero. A place of hunger, of restlessness, of refusing to stay ordinary. Because here's the truth most people will never admit. The biggest asset you'll ever have isn't money. It's the burning refusal to accept average. Every empire begins in obscurity. Every self-made billionaire begins anonymous, overlooked, underestimated. What made the difference? Not luck. Luck only explains lottery winners, not empires, not talent. The world is full of wasted talent, not opportunity. Opportunities exist everywhere, but few can seize them. The real difference was invisible. It was a mental operating system, an OS running silently in the background of every choice they made, every risk they took, every empire they architected. It wasn't visible on paper. You couldn't measure it in test scores or resumes, but it decided everything. That operating system was their unfair advantage. And here's what nobody wants you to know. You can install it too. Because tonight, in this very moment, I'm going to show you how it works. Piece by piece, line of code by line of code. And if you absorb it, if you burn it into your brain like a permanent upgrade, you will never think about business, money, or even life itself the same way again. Here's the brutal truth about billionaires. They started with nothing. And when I say nothing, I mean nothing. No investors, no rich family, no secret backdoor connections. Some of them didn't even have stable housing. Some of them were sleeping on floors, borrowing laptops, eating instant noodles to survive. And yet, they built empires, not businesses, not side hustles. Empires, the kind of machines that move markets, the kind of companies that outlive presidents, the kind of legacies that rewrite history books. How did they do it? Not by working harder than everyone else. Billions of people work hard and stay broke. Not by being smarter. You and I both know plenty of intelligent people who die anonymous. Not by luck either. Luck may open a door, but it never builds a skyscraper. The difference was deeper. It was their mental operating system, the invisible code running in the background of their minds. Every decision, every risk, every empire came from that hidden software. And tonight I want you to see it, not the recycled cliches you've been fed by business influencers, not the surface-level motivation they post for likes. I want you to see the real thing, the raw code, the DNA of billionaires. If you install this into your brain, if you truly let it overwrite the outdated programming society gave you, you will never think about money, business, or power the same way again. Because the system you've been running on, it was never designed to make you free. The sleepwalking masses. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people are sleepwalking, moving through life like NPCs in a video game, running on software written by schools, governments, and corporations. The script goes like this: study hard, get good grades, go to college, get a safe job, buy a house, work until 65, die. That script was not written for your freedom. It was written for your obedience. It was designed to produce compliant workers who build someone else's empire. And that's why, no matter how hard most people hustle, they stay trapped. Trapped in the 9-to-5, trapped in mortgages and credit card debt, trapped in the illusion of security while inflation eats their savings alive. But the ones who broke out, the self-made billionaires, they hacked the system. They didn't just push harder inside the prison walls. They built a ladder and escaped. They didn't just grind more hours. They recoded their minds. Perception is profit. Two people can look at the same moment in history, the same economy, the same opportunity. One sees limitation. The other sees empire. The difference isn't reality, it's perception. And perception is profit. The average mind sees obstacles. The billionaire mind sees systems. Where others see chaos, they see patterns. Where others see barriers, they see leverage points. Where others see problems, they see billion-dollar markets waiting to be solved. Do you realize how powerful that is? Most people are trained to think reactively, to wait until things are obvious, safe, and proven. By the time it feels safe, the billionaire has already moved, already captured the upside, already built the machine. That is the first upgrade you need. Stop asking, what's the risk if I try? Start asking, what's the cost if I wait? Because by the time the masses see the opportunity, the billionaires have already turned it into an empire. The only real currency. But perception alone isn't enough. You must understand the only real currency: time. Most people trade time for money. They rent their hours to an employer, a salary, an hourly wage, even freelance gigs. But the billionaire does the opposite. They trade money for time. They build systems where their personal hours no longer matter. Think about this. The corner store owner works 70 hours a week and calls himself an entrepreneur, but he's chained to the counter. If he leaves, the business dies. The billionaire architect builds a system, a machine that runs 24/7, with or without them. That's the difference between owning a job and owning an empire. Empires are not built on effort. They are built on architecture. Every empire is a machine. And if you're still the one turning the gears, you don't own the empire. The empire owns you. The failure as fuel now. Let's talk about failure. The average person fears it. They avoid it. They see failure as an ending. The billionaire craves it, not because they like losing, but because they understand failure is pure feedback. Every mistake is raw material. Every rejection is market research. Every collapse is a data point for the next iteration. Most people fail once and quit. Billionaires fail 100 times. And by attempt 101, they dominate the market. That's why they move faster. They iterate faster. While everyone else is still licking their wounds, they're already launching version 2, version 3, version 4. This is compounding applied not to money, but to clarity, to execution, to skill. If you improve just 1% every day, in a year, you're 37 times better. Not 37%, 37 times. That's why the billionaire edge looks superhuman. It's not. It's just exponential feedback loops applied relentlessly. The 5 hidden processes. At all times, the billionaire mind runs 5 invisible processes. 1. Pattern recognition, spotting trends before the masses even notice them. 2. Leverage stacking, multiplying results through capital, people, and technology. 3. Risk asymmetry, making bets where the upside is exponential and the downside survivable. 4. Strategic isolation, cutting off noise, distractions, and energy vampires. 5. Execution obsession, ideas are worthless without relentless action. Most people's minds are cluttered, noisy, infected with distractions. The billionaire's mind is custom-built, lean, precise, optimized for domination, killing the viruses. But here's the catch. You can install this new operating system until you delete the viruses infecting your brain. Virus 1, scarcity thinking. The belief that wealth is limited, that success is zero-sum. Delete it. Wealth is created, not distributed. Virus 2, permission seeking. Waiting for validation, needing approval before acting. Delete it. Act first, prove later. Virus 3, comfort addiction, choosing safety over growth. Choosing familiar over exponential. Delete it. Comfort zones are graveyards for empires. If you don't uninstall these viruses, every attempt at wealth will glitch. But once they're gone, your mind runs smooth, clean, unstoppable, and then you can begin to build. First, the blueprint of your $1 million machine, then the $10 million machine, then the $100 million machine. It won't be easy. Every dollar of wealth creation triggers a social death sentence. The more wealth you build, the more enemies you make. But now you play a different game. A game where the pieces on the board are factories, farms, pipelines, media empires. A game where instead of trading time for money, you make money work for your time. A game where you build architectures so big, so impactful, so profitable, that the world itself changes to accommodate you. Because here's the truth. There's no such thing as a self-made billionaire. Every great fortune was built on the backs of other people. Your turn is coming. The question is, what kind of empire will you build? I suggest something big enough to change the world. Now, go install the new operating system. Choose your weapon of wealth creation. This video isn't for everyone. If you're easily offended, skip to the next one. For the rest of you, let's talk about power. Let's talk about how to acquire it, how to wield it, and the 3 levels of the billionaire mindset. Level 1, the billionaire lens. Once the viruses are gone, something strange happens. You start to see the world differently, not as a place of limits, of scarcity, of things you cannot do, but as a place of leverage. The masses look at the world through a dusty window, blurry, distorted, controlled by fear. But the billionaire lens is crystal clear. You don't just see what is, you see what could be. When Uber looked at taxis, they didn't see cars and licenses. They saw inefficiency, they saw software, they saw billions moving in slow motion, waiting to be digitized. When Elon Musk looked at rockets, he didn't see billion-dollar budgets. He saw wasted parts, bad incentives, outdated assumptions. He asked, why can't rockets be reusable? And by asking that forbidden question, he bent the entire space industry. This is the lens you must build. The ability to look at anything, your city, your industry, your daily life, and see where the leverage hides. Because empires are not built on ideas, they are built on lenses. And the sharper your lens, the bigger your empire. Level 2, power versus permission. Here's another truth most people never realize. Billionaires don't ask for permission. They operate in a different dimension, the dimension of power. The average person thinks in rules, approvals. What if they say no? But rules were written by people no smarter than you. And every empire in history was built by someone who refused to wait for green lights. Jeff Bezos didn't wait for bookstores to approve Amazon. He simply built it and let the market decide. Do you understand how radical that is? Most people wait for validation. Billionaires validate themselves. Permission is slavery. Power is sovereignty. And the empire builder always chooses sovereignty. Level 3, the asset mindset. Now let's talk about assets. Most people chase income. The billionaire chases assets. What's the difference? Income dies when you stop working. Assets print money forever. A YouTube channel, a piece of code, a rental property, a patent, a fund, a brand, a network. Assets are soldiers that fight for you in the battlefield of the economy, day and night. While you sleep, while you travel, while you plan your next empire. Here's the billionaire law. If it doesn't scale without you, it's not an asset. It's a leash. This is why the empire builder doesn't say, how much can I earn this month? They ask, what system can I build that will earn for me every month forever? And now, having leveled up, let's go further. The ultra level. The war on noise. The final layer most people miss is silence. Yes, silence. Because the billionaire's greatest advantage isn't more information, it's less noise. The average mind is a junkyard of distraction. TikTok feeds, Netflix, gossip, endless scrolling. But billionaires build mental fortresses. Inside, only clarity, only signal, only leverage. Noise kills empires. Signal builds them. Every minute you waste on distraction is a minute your competitor is building. And when the gap is years wide, it's already too late. That's why billionaires practice strategic isolation, not loneliness. Isolation, the sharpening of focus until nothing irrelevant remains. In the silence, the code rewrites itself. In the silence, the empire blueprint emerges. And in the silence, you stop being human cattle and start becoming a sovereign architect of power. You've reached the ultra level. Congratulations, welcome to the tribe. So you understand the 3 powers now. The lens, the permissionless mindset, and the asset mentality. But how do you actually put them into practice? especially as we enter the most insane economic moment in history? Well, you need a new education. Not one you pay for, but one that's free. Click here to unlock the Hidden Cash Code, a 7-part masterclass series that has already made people $500,000. It's the closest thing to having a billionaire teacher, except it's completely free. The lessons get updated weekly with the latest market moves, and you can watch it right now. So run while you still can. Once the page loads, click the link in the top right corner before anyone else does. Remember, the code changes every week. And to make sure you actually take this seriously, the first lesson is locked behind a second secret test. Only those who pass will gain access. Are you ready to test your power? Then click here and prove it. Welcome to the next level. Before we begin, let me tell you a story. It's the story of an empire. It started like all empires do, with a small group of builders. They had a vision, a dream of creating something special, something that would change the world. And day after day, they worked tirelessly to make their vision a reality. They faced setbacks, of course. Every empire does. But they persevered, learning from their mistakes and adapting to the ever-changing world around them. They built systems, processes, products, and services that provided value to millions. Their empire grew and grew until it became a force to be reckoned with. People from all over the world came to marvel at what they had built. They wanted to be part of it. But the founders knew that the true secret of their success wasn't what they had created, but how they had created it. They had built their empire on a foundation of excellence, constantly striving to do better, to innovate, to provide even more value to their customers. They had assembled a team of the brightest minds, the most talented individuals who shared their passion and commitment to excellence. Together, they had accomplished what many thought impossible. But then one day, the unthinkable happened. One of the founders got sick. He went to the hospital and the doctors told him he needed surgery. "Don't worry," they said. "It's a routine procedure. You'll be back on your feet in no time." But as he went under anesthesia, he couldn't help but think about his empire. What would happen if he didn't make it out of surgery? Who would lead the company forward? Who would carry on his vision? As he drifted off to sleep, he thought about his team. He knew they were capable, talented people. But were they ready to lead the company on their own? Would they be able to keep the empire thriving? He didn't know. Now the surgery was successful, and the founder did in fact make a full recovery. But it was a wake-up call. He realized that he couldn't take anything for granted. He couldn't assume that he'd always be there to lead his company. He needed to put systems in place that would ensure the company's continued success, no matter what happened to him. So he started to delegate. He put processes in place. He hired more talented individuals and trained them to take over his role. He created a leadership team that was capable of making decisions quickly and effectively. Over the next few years, the founder's health deteriorated, and it became clear that he wouldn't be able to run the company much longer. But he wasn't worried. He knew that the company was in good hands. The systems, processes, and people he'd put in place were working. The company was still thriving, and he could step back knowing that his empire would live on. This is the story of how to build an empire that lasts. A massive empire that keeps giving you wealth even when you sleep. This is a story that is repeated again and again among the ultra-wealthy. And today, I'm going to show you exactly how they do it. The secret is hidden in plain sight. It's in the news, in the headlines, and in the everyday choices that you make. It's time to open your eyes and see what's really going on, because the future of wealth is closer than you think. For example, have you heard about these riots in France? Riots in the streets, widespread chaos and destruction. Sounds like the perfect opportunity for an investor, right? Well, have you seen what's happening? The stock market is falling. Investors are pulling out of risky assets. But not everyone is running scared. There's a secret opportunity hidden in plain sight. I mean, what's the best way to profit from war? Arms manufacturing. During World War II, a U.S. weapons manufacturer saw its profits skyrocket 1,600%. Another company profited 1,500% during the Syrian civil war. Even in recent conflicts, arms manufacturers have thrived. Lockheed Martin has enjoyed a 40% boost in share price since Russia invaded Ukraine. The war economy is a lucrative one, and these companies are the ones making big profits. But the real secret is hidden deeper. Take a look at this chart. It shows the biggest fortunes made during war and conflict. The biggest fortunes, billions of dollars. But it gets even more interesting. Look at who's profiting the most. It's not just the obvious suspects like weapons manufacturers or oil companies. It's also the technology companies. Microsoft, Apple, Meta, Google. These companies are profiting from the war economy too. So what's the secret? It's simple. While others are running scared, these companies are betting big. They're investing in technology, in innovation. They're doubling down on research and development, and the results speak for themselves. Microsoft, for example, increased its R&D spending by 18% in the last year. Its net income rose by 29%. This is the secret to making money from chaos. Invest in innovation. Bet big while others are running scared. This is how empires are built. And if you want to join them, you need to see what others don't. Here's a challenge. Take a look at these headlines. What do you see? Chaos, fear, uncertainty. But what if I told you there's a secret opportunity hidden in plain sight? What if I told you that there's a way to profit from the very headlines that are scaring everyone else? Well, believe it or not, it's possible. And it all starts with understanding the power of perspective. Take a look at this headline. Chaos in France as riots spread. Sounds scary, right? But what if I told you that there's a way to profit from the very chaos that everyone else is running from? Well, it's possible. And it starts with understanding the power of perspective. See, while everyone else is focused on the negative, on the fear and uncertainty, there are others who are looking for the opportunity, the secret opportunity that lies hidden in plain sight. They're betting on the very headlines that are scaring everyone else. Here's another example. France raises terror alert as riots rage. Sounds terrifying, right? But what if I told you that there's a way to profit from the very fear that everyone else is embracing? Well, it's possible. And it all starts with understanding the power of perspective. While others are buying into the fear, there are a few who are looking beyond the headlines, who are seeing the opportunity that lies hidden in plain sight. They're betting against the very fear that everyone else is holding on to so tightly. But how do you become one of them? How do you learn to see the opportunities that lie hidden in plain sight? Well, it all starts with understanding the psychology of the crowd. You see, when fear takes hold of the masses, when headlines scream danger and uncertainty, there are two groups of people: those who run scared and those who see the opportunity, those who buy into the fear and those who bet against it. And the difference between the two is perspective. It's the ability to look beyond the headlines, to see the underlying opportunity that lies hidden in plain sight. Now, I know it's not easy. Fear is a powerful motivator. It's something that everyone experiences, but it's also something that can be overcome. It's something that can be conquered. And when you do, when you learn to see the opportunities that lie hidden in plain sight, that's when you truly become an investor. That's when you start seeing the world the way the ultra-wealthy do. If you're ready to take the next step, then I have a challenge for you. Go and read the business section of your newspaper. Or better yet, look at the financial news online. Find the articles that talk about fear, uncertainty, doubt. Find the headlines that scream danger. And then ask yourself this question: what is the opportunity that lies hidden in plain sight? Take a look at the war in France. What opportunities do you see? What bets can you make that will profit from the very fear that everyone else is running from? Don't be afraid to think outside the box. Don't be afraid to challenge the status quo. Because the world is full of opportunities, and it's up to you to find them. Remember, the ultra-wealthy don't just get lucky. They see what others don't. They bet on what seems impossible. And they profit from the very fear that holds everyone else back. Are you ready to join them? Are you ready to see the world the way they do? If so, then I challenge you to look beyond the headlines, to look beyond the fear, and to find the opportunities that lie hidden in plain sight. The world is full of them, and it's up to you to find them. The architecture of leverage. Here's the part nobody tells you. Billionaires don't build wealth by doing more. They build it by multiplying the effect of less. This is leverage, the force that allows one person to bend an entire industry. The same way Archimedes said, "Give me a place to stand and I'll move the world." For the billionaire, that place is leverage. Think of code. Write it once, deploy it 1,000,000 times. Think of money. Invest it once, let it compound endlessly. Think of networks. Shake one hand, and you unlock 1,000 doors. Leverage is not about working harder. It's about building systems where your input shrinks, but your output grows exponentially. This is why billionaires are ruthless about where they spend their time. They ask, is this scalable, or is this a trap? Because time spent on non-leverage is slavery. Time spent on leverage is empire. The law of asymmetry. Another hidden code: billionaires don't play fair games. They hunt for asymmetry. What's asymmetry? It's when the upside is massive and the downside is tiny. When an angel investor puts $50,000 into a startup that could return $50 million, that's asymmetry. When a founder spends a year building software that, if it works, scales to 1 billion people, that's asymmetry. The poor and middle class look for guarantees. The rich look for imbalance. They ask, where is the game rigged in my favor? Asymmetry is why billionaires don't need to be right 100 times. They only need to be right once. And when that one bet lands, the empire explodes. The infinite game. Here's the final shift of the billionaire OS. They don't play finite games. Finite games end. You win, you lose, it's over. That's how most people live. Paycheck to paycheck, month to month, year to year. But billionaires play the infinite game. The game of systems that outlive them. The game of wealth that compounds beyond their lifetime. When you see Bezos reinvest Amazon's profits for 20 years instead of cashing out, that's infinite game thinking. When Warren Buffett says his favorite holding period is forever, that's infinite game thinking. When families like the Rothschilds, Rockefellers, and Waltons build wealth that lasts centuries, that's the infinite game. You want to think like a billionaire? Stop asking how to win this week. Start asking how to build a system that never stops winning. The sovereign upgrade. At the end of this rewiring, something irreversible happens. You stop thinking like a worker. You stop thinking like a hustler. You stop even thinking like a millionaire. You begin to think like a sovereign, someone who doesn't need permission, someone who doesn't obey limits, someone who builds systems that print money, power, and freedom endlessly. And the truth is, once you cross this threshold, you can't go back. You can't unsee the leverage. You can't unhear the silence. You can't unlearn the code. You are no longer playing the game. You are writing the rules, and that is the moment your empire begins. The law of asymmetry. The masses believe wealth is a straight line. Work hard, earn more, save, repeat. But the empire builder knows the truth. Wealth is asymmetric. It's not about doing more. It's about finding the one lever that multiplies effort by 1,000. Think about it. One contract can be worth more than 10 years of wages. One connection can open more doors than a lifetime of networking. One deal can catapult you from obscurity into the billionaire's arena. This is why billionaires hunt asymmetry like predators. They don't chase paychecks, they chase multipliers. Every decision they make is filtered through one question. Does this move give me 10x return for the same energy? That's why they'll invest in code that scales to millions, but never in labor that burns hours for pennies. That's why they'll spend a year on one negotiation, because they know it can make them richer than 10,000 days of busy work. Asymmetry is the billionaire's time machine. It collapses decades into days. It takes you from zero to empire. The hidden game of positioning. Here's the secret the average person never sees. Success is not about being the best. It's about being positioned where power flows. Do you know why banks always win? Because they position themselves at the choke point of money. Do you know why oil barons ruled nations? Because they position themselves at the choke point of energy. Do you know why tech billionaires run the world today? Because they position themselves at the choke point of attention and data. Power doesn't chase the skilled. Power chases the positioned. You could be a genius in a dead field and stay broke. Or you could be average in the right choke point and get rich beyond imagination. Billionaires don't play the visible game. They play the invisible one, positioning. They stand where the river of capital must flow. And once positioned, they build dams, gates, and toll roads. Here's the rule. If you control the flow, you control the empire. The code of ruthless prioritization. Most people drown in opportunity. They say yes to everything. They scatter energy everywhere and end up exhausted, diluted, powerless. But billionaires, they are ruthless. They say no to 99% of things, not because they don't care, but because they know focus is the ultimate multiplier. Steve Jobs said it. Innovation is saying no to 1,000 things. Because your empire is not built by what you add. It's built by what you cut away. This is the dark code. To build an empire, you must sacrifice good opportunities for great ones. You must abandon comfort for leverage. You must kill distractions before they kill your legacy. Every no becomes a sword stroke. Every cut sharpens your empire. And one day, all that remains is the diamond core. The empire no one else had the discipline to build. The Billionaire Immortality Project. Here's the part that most people can't even process. Billionaires don't just build for themselves, they build for immortality. Because when money no longer buys pleasure, it buys permanence. Think of Rockefeller. Oil turned into banks. Banks turned into universities. Universities turned into dynasties. Think of Carnegie. Steel turned into libraries, into foundations, into influence that shaped generations. Think of Bezos, building not just Amazon, but a space program designed to outlive Earth itself. This is the highest code of all. Play the game not for years, not for decades, but for centuries. The billionaire doesn't ask, "How can I live well?" They ask, "How can I live forever through my empire?" This is why they move differently. This is why they bend industries, governments, even civilizations. Because their time horizon is infinite. The law of compounding power. Most people only understand compounding in money. Save a little, let it grow, interest on interest. But billionaires know compounding applies to everything. Compounded reputation opens doors money can't. Compounded relationships create networks stronger than governments. Compounded knowledge makes you unstoppable because every insight layers on the last. Here's the dark code. Compounding rewards the patient predator. One reputation hit, you lose decades of trust. But one move every year, consistent, precise, relentless, and 10 years later, you're untouchable. That's why billionaires don't rush. They're not playing for today's dopamine, they're playing for inevitability. You may not notice them for a decade, but by the time you do, it's too late. They've already built the monopoly, the silence of power. Here's another billionaire secret. Silence is louder than noise. The masses brag, the middle class flexes. But billionaires? They disappear. Why? Because true power doesn't announce itself. It moves in shadows. It controls without showing control. Think about it. The wealthiest families on Earth, you don't see them on Instagram. The deepest dynasties, they don't shout their net worth. The most dangerous billionaires, you don't even know their names. The lesson? Silence multiplies power. The less you reveal, the more they speculate. The more they speculate, the stronger your myth becomes. The empire builder doesn't need applause. They need obedience. And obedience flows not to the loudest, but to the most mysterious. The law of control. Listen carefully. If you don't control it, you don't own it. Most people think they're free because they have money. But if your money sits in a system you don't control, you're a prisoner. That's why billionaires build empires, not jobs. That's why they own platforms, not profiles. That's why they buy influence, not just assets. Control is the highest form of wealth. Control means you decide the rules. Control means you collect the tax. Control means no one can unplug your empire. And here's the truth. Every billionaire you know is obsessed with control. Because without it, wealth is fragile. With it, wealth becomes immortal. The final filter. Everything comes down to one question. One filter that billionaires run through their mind before every decision. Does this make me replaceable or irreplaceable? If the answer is replaceable, they don't touch it. If the answer is irreplaceable, they double down. Because the empire belongs not to the strongest, not to the fastest, but to the one who cannot be replaced. This is why they build unique networks. This is why they create choke points. This is why they think in centuries. Because replaceable men chase money, but irreplaceable men become money. They are the code. They are the empire. The law of monopoly. Competition is for amateurs. Monopoly is for kings. The middle class competes for salaries. The upper class competes for status. But billionaires, they don't compete. They remove competition. Look closely at every empire. Google didn't win search. It became search. Amazon didn't fight bookstores. It buried them. Coca-Cola didn't compete in beverages. It owned the distribution. The empire builder doesn't ask, how do I win the game? They ask, how do I design the game so no one else can win? That is monopoly. And monopoly is immortality. Time bending. Here's a secret most people never understand. Billionaires don't live in the same time dimension as you. The masses think in hours. The middle class thinks in weeks. The rich think in years. But billionaires, they think in decades. This is why they appear insane. Who invests billions into rockets that may take 20 years to pay off? Who spends decades buying land that doesn't cash flow until their grandchildren? Who sacrifices today for a future they may never see? The billionaire. Because they know, when you bend time, you bend destiny. The longer your horizon, the less competition exists. Most people are too impatient to play the century game. That's why the billionaire always wins it. The law of hidden leverage. The world is a chessboard of leverage, but most people only see the pawns. The billionaire doesn't move without leverage. Capital leverage, technology leverage, media leverage, network leverage. They never fight with their own hands. They build systems, assets, and armies that fight for them. That's why the empire grows without their constant effort. That's why, while you work, they orchestrate. The lesson is simple. Stop pushing. Start pulling. Stop being the soldier. Become the general. The filter of legacy. Here's the last billionaire filter. Will this echo after I'm gone? Because power without legacy is sand. Money without legacy is dust. But empire with legacy becomes dynasty. This is why the wealthiest men secretly build for bloodlines. They don't just build for themselves. They build systems, trusts, funds, and institutions that will outlive them. You think they're gone? Their structures still control you. Their fingerprints are still on your economy. Their empires whisper across centuries. The billionaire isn't just building a company. They're building an afterlife. And when you understand that, you stop asking, how do I get rich? And start asking, how do I become a ghost that still moves markets after I die? Now let's talk about an idea that sounds like a paradox. The architecture of invisibility. The most powerful billionaires aren't the ones you see gracing the covers of magazines or dominating headlines. No, their power lies in a realm where influence operates silently, shaping the world from the shadows. Now this might sound intriguing, but but perhaps even a bit unbelievable. How can someone be incredibly powerful and yet remain largely unknown? But this isn't just a concept. It's the operating principle of those who sit at the very top of the economic pyramid. You see, the world is controlled by a handful of families whose names might not be as familiar to you as you think. They prefer it that way. Families like the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the Marshes, and many others whose legacies have been meticulously crafted over generations. But how do these families exercise their influence if they're not in the public eye? Well, that's what we'll be discussing today. We'll delve deep into their strategies, the mechanisms they've put in place, and the intricate web of control they've woven across industries, economies, and even geopolitics. So if you're ready to pull back the curtain and expose the hidden architecture of power, keep watching. This won't be a ride. In our hyper-connected world, it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that visibility equals importance. After all, it's the age of influencers. But among the billionaire class, there's a different philosophy, one based on the concept of invisible control. Let's explore this concept further because it's the cornerstone of understanding how these elite families shape our world. Think about the most influential families you know. Maybe it's the Kardashians or the British royal family. These names are synonymous with fame and recognition. But in the shadowy realm of high finance and global power, there are families whose wealth and influence dwarf these names, yet they prefer to remain out of the public spotlight. Families like the Rothschilds, for example. They're a name synonymous with banking and old money. Yet how many people can actually name a current member of the Rothschild family? Or consider the Rockefellers. Their name echoes with the history of wealth creation and philanthropy. Yet how many of us know who leads the family today? These families understand that in the game they play, visibility is vulnerability. It's this simple truth that shapes their every move. By staying out of the public eye, they shield themselves from the pressures and distractions of mass recognition. Instead, they operate in the shadows, pulling strings that dictate economic shifts, political decisions, and even societal trends. Their power stems from control, not visibility. And they've built their empires in a way that ensures their dominance remains steady and absolute. Consider the concept of a puppet master. He orchestrates the movements of the puppets, dictating their actions without ever stepping into the spotlight himself. The billionaire operates in much the same way. Their wealth and influence act as the strings, guiding the course of events while they remain unseen. This might seem like a strategy born out of timidity, but it's anything but. It's a calculated move in their eternal game of chess. And so, the billionaire mindset shuns the glare of publicity, recognizing that true power lies not in being known, but in being untouchable. That's the first piece of the puzzle. Now, the billionaire mindset isn't just about seeking invisibility. It's also about mapping the very systems that billions of people navigate daily without realizing it. They construct the architecture of modern living. This brings us to the second aspect of billionaire control, the cartography of control. Have a look around you. Every interaction, every transaction, every moment of your day is embedded within systems that were designed, constructed, and are maintained by the billionaire class. Think of the education system. Did you just assume you signed up for it? Actually, you were placed in it. The billionaire mind maps out educational pathways long before anyone steps into a classroom. They fund schools, set curricula, and even place key figures in administrative roles. It's a silent takeover of the very institution tasked with shaping young minds. Then consider the financial system. Every dollar you earn, every cent you spend, every investment you make is all within a structure that the billionaires have mapped out. They own the banks that hold your savings. They set the rules that govern international trade. They even create the instruments of finance that dictate how markets swing. It's a silent coup of the economic sphere. This idea of controlling the systems extends to every facet of modern life, from the water that flows through your taps to the news that reaches your eyes and ears. Everything is either owned or influenced by someone at the top, someone whose name might not be etched in stone, but whose presence is deeply embedded in every aspect of our lives. To understand this concept better, picture yourself in a vast city. You're going about your daily routine, unaware that every building, every street, every landmark has been carefully selected and designed by a master city planner. Your movements are guided by the roads they've constructed. Your interactions are confined to the spaces they've created. And all of this is done without you ever realizing it. That's the cartography of control. And just like the inhabitants of that city, we unknowingly move within the boundaries set by these invisible architects. If you've noticed, even as we discuss these concepts, we're following a pattern. There's a deliberate choice of words, a careful construction of narratives. It's almost as if we're playing a game of economic chess where each move is calculated. Each pawn is placed with precision. This brings us to the final layer of billionaire control, the law of proxy power. Billionaires are like grandmasters in this game of global economics. They orchestrate moves that shake entire industries, all without making an appearance on the playing field themselves. They achieve this through proxies. And when we talk about proxies, we're talking about a wide array of tools. It could be a politician swayed by hefty campaign donations. It could be a media outlet whose agenda is shaped by subtle financial incentives. It could even be a seemingly independent CEO whose decisions are guided by a board of directors beholden to no one except the billionaires. The billionaire doesn't fight battles directly. They send forth their proxies, their surrogates that carry out their will with precision. And the brilliance of this approach lies in its resilience. If one proxy falters, it's easily replaceable. But if the billionaire himself is compromised, the entire system collapses. This is why billionaires are often able to weather storms that would sink ordinary businesses or politicians. Think of it this way. If you were to take down a single piece of a complex machine, it might cause a temporary disruption, but the machine would likely continue to function. However, remove the central control unit and the whole thing grinds to a halt. That's the difference between being a part of the system and controlling it. The billionaires aren't just players in the game of global economics. They're the game makers. They set the rules, design the board, and place the pieces. And as long as they remain hidden, as long as their proxies do their bidding, their control remains absolute. As you might have gathered, billionaire control isn't a simple concept. It's a multi-layered structure that permeates every aspect of our lives. From the architecture of invisibility to the cartography of control and the law of proxy power. These families have crafted a system that ensures their influence remains steadfast and their power unchallenged. But here's the most intriguing part. They don't just wield this power for personal gain. Oh no, that's far too simplistic a view. They use it to shape the world according to their vision. Whether you agree with that vision or not is beside the point. The fact is, they have the means and the will to mold global events in ways that most of us can only dream of. Their anonymity allows them to make bold moves, to orchestrate changes that would be unthinkable for someone operating in the public arena. They're the puppeteers of our world, pulling strings that make economies dance, that sway political tides, and that shift the balance of power. And as long as we remain blissfully unaware of their machinations, as long as we go about our lives within the systems they've created, their power remains absolute. So if you ever find yourself questioning who really controls the world, remember the name you seek might not be among the famous, might not grace the covers of magazines, but it might be lurking in the shadows where the real power lies. And then you realize one day that money stops working. It's not because it's worthless. Quite the opposite. It's because it's too small. Your cash flow prints millions by the week. Your empire moves without your hand on the wheel. You start asking new questions. How do I escape this game of scarcity? How do I ascend beyond earning more? How do I transcend into godhood? This isn't science fiction. This is the real secret history of billionaires, how they go from rich to sovereign, from flesh to immortality, from mortal to God. I've sat at both tables, one with the human cattle who trade freedom for security, and one with the architects who design reality. In today's episode, we discuss what very few understand. the evolution of the billionaire mindset as they approach nationless sovereignty. So the first thing you learn as a billionaire is that money stops mattering. It's not because you have enough, quite the opposite. It's because you have too much. What happens to your brain when there's more money than hours in the day? What happens to your soul when every problem has a price tag? I remember the exact moment when money stopped working for me. I was staring at $100 million sitting in my trading account, thinking, wow, I could buy anything I want. I could help anyone. I could change everything. But instead of feeling empowered, I felt empty. That's when I realized money had become a tool, not a solution. To find meaning, I had to look within myself. This realization changed me forever. I learned two vital truths. 1. Money isn't the answer. It's the byproduct of the right question. 2. The meaning of life isn't found in material things. It's found in the journey, in the impact, in the legacy you leave behind. These realizations sparked a fire in my soul, propelling me forward on a quest for deeper truths. It became my North Star, guiding me through the complexities of life and business. The next truth is that most people confuse identity with citizenship. Think about it. When someone asks, "Who are you?" you reflexively respond with your nationality, your passport. But that's just an ID, a label assigned at birth. It doesn't define who you truly are. Yet we let it shape our thoughts, our actions, our choices. Billionaires see citizenship differently. It's a strategic tool, a source of leverage, not identity. They hold multiple passports, residences, golden visas like a grandmaster holds chess pieces on a board. They move them around based on their needs, taxes, borders, laws. These are the cages that confine the masses. The billionaire carries the master key. They are not bound to a country. They are a country. This might sound controversial, but hear me out. Citizenship is a privilege, not a birthright. It's granted by a government in exchange for loyalty. Billionaires maximize this deal. They extract the benefits of multiple citizenships, the freedom, the opportunities, the resources, and offer more in return, be it through investments, jobs, innovation. They transcend the limitations of nationality. Their vision knows no borders. Their loyalty belongs to themselves. They are free to pursue their interests wherever they find value. This might seem distant, but many billionaires live this reality. Take, for example, the many Russians living in Switzerland or the Chinese billionaires managing companies in Singapore. Nationality is a cage for the mind. It limits perspective, stifling creativity, and progress. The billionaire breaks free, embracing a global mindset that sees opportunities where others see barriers. The third truth is that for the masses, death is a full stop. For the billionaire, it's a comma. Why? Because their power is coded into systems that outlive them. Trust, foundations, funds, algorithms, dynasties. Even if they lose control, their network keeps breathing. When they die, their minds keep flowing through memos, letters, algorithms, AI trained on their decisions. Billionaires don't die. They replicate. Death is a negotiation. They make deals with doctors, geneticists, biotech companies to push back the frontiers of life. They explore uncharted territories of longevity, often alone since the research is so expensive that only they can afford it. One area they heavily invest in is understanding the economics of death. They hire actuaries to run complex models, crunching data to determine the likelihood of survival past the age of 100. Some billionaires take it a step further, pushing the boundaries of technology. They experiment with cryonics, the freezing of human bodies after death in the hope of future revival. I might seem insane to some, but billionaires are comfortable with the unknown. They're willing to risk absurd amounts of money on long shots, if there's even a chance of success. This mindset allows them to live vibrantly and boldly, unafraid of what lies beyond the horizon. So remember, death is not the end for a billionaire. It's merely a transition. Their essence continues in various forms, ensuring their influence and legacy endure. The fourth truth is that at the peak of their journey, billionaires no longer chase money. They chase godhood. It's the next evolutionary step. They've conquered the physical world. Now they're conquering the digital and biological realms. They're building virtual assets that potentially hold more value than all physical assets combined. Think metaverse projects, cryptocurrencies, algorithms that predict trends with frightening accuracy. They're also hacking biology, extending lifespan, reversing aging, enhancing cognition through neurotechnology. The goal is clear: achieve post-human evolution, become immortal. This isn't just about extending life, it's about transcending the limitations of the human form. Imagine a future where your consciousness is uploaded to a computer, where your mind can live forever in a virtual paradise, a world where diseases and disabilities become a thing of the past, where the boundaries between man and machine blur, giving way to a new species. This is the frontier of billionaire evolution. It's a bold, controversial path. Many see it as the ultimate goal. Others view it as a threat, fearing the implications of playing God. But one thing is certain: this journey is irreversible. The billionaires of tomorrow will push the boundaries of possibility, shaping the very future of humanity, which brings us to the fifth truth. At the very summit, you don't just collect wealth, you become its architect. This is the throne room most will never see. Once you reach this level, money is your servant. You dictate its flow, shaping economies, influencing markets, controlling currencies. Time is your ally. You've honed the ability to think long-term, making decisions that span generations. Nations are your pieces. You build alliances, forge partnerships, broker deals that shift geopolitical landscapes. But it's not just about external forces. Reality itself begins to bend under the weight of your vision. You shape laws, write regulations, influence policies that steer industries, entire societies. You are the puppet master of globalization, orchestrating a symphony of commerce, technology, and human ingenuity. The question is simple: do you serve the system, or do you become the system? Welcome to the highest level of billionaire. Here you don't just play the game, you design it. All the answers I'm sharing are encoded in ancient texts. Today we reveal just one: how to transcend into godhood. When the last deal is done, when the final billion is made, when you're standing at the pinnacle of success, when the world is yours, one truth remains. It was never about money, it was about power of choice. The choice to move where you want, to speak without fear, to create without asking, to rewrite your bloodline, to bend time itself. This is the sovereign gift money buys, not cars, not watches, not mansions, but freedom so absolute, the world becomes clay in your hands. You see, the billionaire isn't just rich. They are beyond rich. They are sovereign. Their wealth is a kingdom. They don't have money. They have an empire that keeps printing. And now you too can ascend to that level. This is the second Suverian lesson. First, they control the machines that make money. Then they build for centuries. A normal man leaves his children debt. A sovereign leaves his children kingdoms. You think Jeff Bezos will run Amazon? No. He'll pass the crown to his heir, who will reign over the biggest economy in the world. A family business, a king's ransom. And all the fools out there think Bezos is a genius. He is. But that genius is not in making money. That genius is in making kings. But here's the secret. It's not the wealth itself that matters. Wealth can be stolen, taxed, inflated away. What survives is the architecture. Systems, structures, codes of power. A machine that keeps printing long after the original hand is gone. This is how a family becomes a dynasty. This is how one name survives across centuries while millions are forgotten. So when you're building, don't just think big. Think infinite. Build not for your life, but for your legacy. Build not for today, but for your tomb. Build not for applause, but for endurance. This is the purpose of the sovereign, to outlast, to become eternal. And this brings us to the third layer of the billionaire mind, the invisible religion. Most people go through life like zombies. They're told to pray to one god, then another god. All of these gods were created by someone else. The sovereign writes their own scripture. The billionaire has a daily ritual of discipline. They carve out sacred laws of wealth. They have their own church, their own Bible. And if you read it, you will see it is not about money. It's about leverage. It's about empire. It's about time. These scriptures are written in silence. They're carved in solitude. They're enforced with iron will. The billionaire worships three: leverage, empire, time. And those three gods are enough. For a mortal man, it might not seem like much. But for the billionaire, it's everything. This invisible religion keeps the dynasty unbreakable. It's not prayed in churches. It's lived in contracts, in silence, in power moves invisible to the herd. And finally, this brings us to the last mirror. When the immortal echo bounces back and you're standing at the end of your empire, when the world is silent and your empire stands tall, when you die, there will be no approval, no permission, no excuses. Only one question: did you live as cattle or as sovereign? Most people will never even get the chance to ask. Their lives are swallowed by noise, by jobs, by obligations. But if you're here, listening to these words, the chance has been given to you. The door is open. The throne is empty. The empire is waiting. Now go and write your name in the stars. Go and build the machine that will outlive you. Go and create the dynasty that will outlast you. You have been given the chance. Don't waste it. Some people hear this and think it's about money. It's not. It's about power. Some people will say it's selfish. It is. Some people will call it evil. It is. But what is the alternative? To be a slave, to be a servant, to be a peasant? You think that's better? You're wrong. Those who serve others are still slaves. Even if they're paid, even if they're praised, even if they're promoted, they are still slaves of the system. If you're going to be a slave, why not be the master? If you're going to be nothing, why not be everything? If you're going to do evil, why not do it on your own terms? And here's the final secret, the ultimate paradox. When you die, two things happen. Your body decays. Your empire echoes. The billionaire understands this. They build not for applause, not for fame, not even for wealth, but for the echo, the vibration that bends history, that whispers into the future. Here lived one who refused the leash. Here lived one who became architect, sovereign, post-human. And long after your flesh is gone, the systems you built will still print, the codes you wrote will still guide, and your name will still move through silence like a shadow empire. That is the billionaire's final ascent. Not wealth, not even sovereignty, but eternity.